Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we learned, obviously, we've got a lot of returners on this year's roster, and so it's been a long time since any of those guys had an opportunity to compete in postseason baseball. And it's definitely a different atmosphere. It's a different feel. And so those guys having the opportunity to compete at that level and that kind of intensity is only going to help us moving forward. I think the biggest thing that we probably learned as a coaching staff throughout the year last year and even into the postseason is just how offensive this league is, and what we need the roster to look like in order for us to be able to have success at the highest level of this league. And I feel like we did a pretty good job. Coach White did a tremendous job of filling the roster this year with guys that can get that done. And so, man, it's been a long few years going through this process, and we've had a ton of really good players and been able to sustain some success through the transition, which isn't always the case. And so, it's just a credit to those guys and the effort that they put in to put us in the position that we're in now. And now we just got to take it to that next step.
Coach, when you look at your upcoming schedule, which gets kicked off a little over a week away, the Lone Star Conference really is unique in Division II baseball. Essentially all conference games, game 1 through 4 is just as important as game 38 through 42 or whatever it is. And you get started on the road this year at Oklahoma Christian. What's the mindset to the team, knowing it with the experience of last year, how important at the end of the year all these games at the beginning of the year ultimately will end up being?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something that we've emphasized all fall with our guys in their work over the winter break, that we got to come in prepared. It's not like your typical college baseball schedule where you get 3 or 4 weeks to kind of figure out where you're at and then go into conference play. We get it going right off the bat, and so our guys have got to be prepared. We've got to be prepared. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that the first game is the first game, and the things that happen when you play early in the season are still going to happen. All you can do is try to be as prepared as you possibly can, both mentally and physically, so that you give yourself a best chance, that you can to win as many games as possible, because, just winning series in this league isn't good enough to win the league. You got to be able to sweep series and also win series against those other guys around the top of the league. And so just not taking anything for granted. 4 games in a weekend's a lot. I feel like we've got some depth on the roster this year. I think you'll see probably for the first time in a few years 12 or so different hitters playing a pretty big role early on, playing some matchups and stuff like that. And so in the past we've maybe had some depth to play some matchups, but it's been more so less what one guy does really well against this guy and more so this guy struggles against that guy. And so it's depth in a positive way where we've got 12 guys or so we feel like really have a chance to help us out and are going to get some playing time. And then on the flip side of that, being able to play more guys throughout a season of 40-game weekends, hopefully we'll stay healthier. And guys will be primed and ready to go when we get down to the end.
Coach, you lost Tanner Roach, Kyle McCaffrey, Lucas Blanco, obviously 3 leaders. Roach was the last remaining member of the national championship team at UT Tyler. Obviously 3 of the biggest names that have ever come through the program. And you've had to replace that, and you've obviously got some great people that can replace that. You got Jordan Gokenauer, Carson Cox, A.J. Irvin, Dylan Blomquist. What are those new guys that had to step up into that big role? What have those guys done so far in this season, the off season, and then heading into the season that's really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, just their leadership. A lot of those guys, that you just named, were big leaders for our program. Lucas and Roach specifically were kind of the 2 that took the bull by the horns last year, and then obviously along with that supporting cast of those other seniors. And those guys are gone now, and so the Carson Coxes and Jordan Gokenhauers, Nolan Cox and A.J. Irvins, those guys you mentioned, they find themselves in new roles as looked at to be leaders of the program. And to be honest with you, it kind of started at the end of last season. We always obviously do exit meetings at the end of the year, and Carson, A.J. and a couple other guys came in at the end of the year, weren't happy with how we finished and where we were. And we had some really good man-to-man conversations about what we need to do moving forward and what their role on this year's team would be knowing that they were going to step into more of a leadership type role. And so those guys have been preparing for that since the day the season ended last year, and they've done a tremendous job of preparing themselves and their teammates. And I feel like we're in a better spot right now than we were even at this point last year, just as a team. And that's a credit to our guys and the work that they've put in, not just at the field but off the field, to make sure that everybody's pulling in the right direction and that we're in a good place in the clubhouse. So.
Coach, it is certainly a marathon, not a sprint, with Patriot baseball getting kicked off here in the spring. Little over a week away, and then you will return home to Irwin Field the following weekend, February 10th through the 12th against St. Mary's. Best of luck.